It has to stop. The people of Ottawa don't deserve to be harassed in their own neighborhoods. They don't deserve to be confronted with the inherent violence of a swastika flying on a street corner, or a Confederate flag, or the insults and jeers just because they're wearing a mask. That's not who Canadians are.
All right, so here's
wow.
here's
I can
the
hardly even look at him.
here's the first question. How can discourse in a great democracy have become so polarized that Jordon Peterson and the Prime Minister look at exactly the same set of events and come to opposite conclusions about them?
Well, he's lying, and I'm not. So that's a big part of the issue. I don't believe that he ever says a word that's true.
The quote was about protests in general. It was something like, we have a vibrant democracy here in Canada and we value protests. But it was something like, but when you use protest to protest, to object to the policies of the government, I think you're going too far. Well, what the fuck is protest for, except to object to the policies of the government?
It was quite shocking, everything that happened in that protest, because they seized the bank accounts of 200 Canadians, and that was not amusing. And Trudeau has no idea what that did to Canada's international reputation. That was not a good precedent.
Okay, wait, go back.
Mm-hmm.
They seized the bank accounts of what,
200
people who were in the protest?
They seized some bank accounts of some people who only sent money to the protest, like through Give, Send, Go, and GoFundMe and so forth. So.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So you didn't even have to be at the protest.
When you say seized, they froze it. They didn't take their money. They just froze it. So they
froze their credit cards. They froze their mortgage payments. They locked them out. So they locked them out of the financial system entirely.
That is creepy.
It's really bad. In fact, one of the banks actually apologized. There's 5 big banks in Canada, and one of them actually apologized for doing it eventually. They all should have apologized, but one did. Yeah, it was really bad. It was shocking. Canadians aren't sufficiently shocked about it, partly because they don't really understand what that did to Canada's international reputation. But it was absolutely, I can't imagine a politician doing anything more inappropriate than that. Right? No trial, no real investigation. Plus, Trudeau claimed that the trucker convoy was financed by MAGA, Republican Americans, which is completely preposterous because, first of all, why would MAGA Republican Americans foment dissent in Ottawa? Like, even if they knew where it was, which they don't, and they don't care, and why would they? And so, first of all, it was the Russians. It's like, oh yes, that's the Russians' primary concern. And then it was like literally MAGA Republican Americans funding the trucker protests in Ottawa. It was so
And
ridiculous.
they were protesting vaccine mandates.
Yeah, essentially. But they were protesting the lockdowns more broadly, I would say. Yeah. And because it was really hard on them. It was hard. Well, obviously, you were locked down. You know how fun that was. Living in Justin Trudeau's Canada, it's a never-ending hallucinogenic, surreal dream. Justin Trudeau's mode of governance is to top each scandal with a bigger scandal. And he's really good at that. And you might say, well, what's wrong with Canadians? And I can tell you what's wrong with Canadians is that Canadians have a very difficult choice to make. They can either wake up and realize that under the jurisdiction of this preposterous narcissist, we've compromised virtually every institution of integrity in Canada, which is a really bitter pill to swallow, or we can assume that everyone who's pointing that out is some sort of conspiracy theorist. And it's way easier for Canadians to swallow the latter story than to actually contend with the true ramifications of the former story. Now, unfortunately, the former story is true. So that's okay.
Well, what is extraordinary? What's extraordinary about?
Long.
I mean, what's extraordinary right now? You've been ordered. I don't even know if that's the right word to use, to take social media training by a Canadian court because you posted tweets criticizing the transgender and body positivity movements. My first question is, do you intend to do this?
Oh, well, I've got all sorts of evil plans on that front. I mean, at the moment, we've appealed the decision of the court in Canada to allow the college to proceed with their re-education of me. Now, the re-education, what are the criteria of the re-education program is that I'm required to sit down with a social media expert, whatever the hell that is, because that's not a genuine occupation. I don't even know how you define it. And I'm supposed to also, as a clinician, be very careful about how I allow myself to be educated, let's say. I'm supposed to educate myself according to the tenets of scientific investigation, for example, or recognized clinical practice, and social media expert doesn't fit into those categories. Anyways, I'm supposed to sit down with a social media expert, and then I'm supposed to modify my attitude, however I'm supposed to do that, until they're satisfied that I've changed. And, you know, that's not that likely as far as I can tell, because I haven't changed since I was 3 years old, really, in some core elements.
Jordon, it's also preposterous, isn't it? I mean, the idea that in a modern democratic society, which Canada purports to be, the idea they take one of its great thinkers, clinical psychologist, like you're someone who literally is one of the smarter thinkers and brains in the country, and think that they can get a social media expert, whatever that is, to re-educate you about views that you honestly hold, about some of the insanity of the gender debate or the insanity of the body positivity debate. The idea that somehow you're in the wrong and you have to be re-educated, that in a way is a form of fascism, isn't it? I mean, it's the kind of Nazism that someone like Trudeau would profess to hate most in the world. And yet he's encouraging the demonization of you for challenging the insanity.
It's the world of evil clowns, man. It's preposterous in the extreme.
Come on. Come on. Really? Really? Okay, this is it.